Hello, today I'm going to be telling you what an El Nino is and many other things about an El Nino and why you should worry about it too.
Feeling my way through the darkness, guided by a beating heart.
El Nino is an irregular, occurring, and complicated series of climate changes that affect the equatorial Pacific. This happens about every 5 to 7 years. It is characterized by the appearance of unusually warm, nutrient-poor water north of Peru and Ecuador.
Well, life will pass me by if I don't open up my eyes, so that's fine by me. So wake me up.
An El Nino affects the world by increasing rainfall across the southern tier of the United States of America. In the western Pacific, it causes destructive floods, droughts, and brush fires. This is bad because the inhabitants of the country or region are not adapted to that.
So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older.
In the western and central Pacific, the trade winds relax, which leads to low levels of thermocline in the eastern part of the Pacific, which leads to an elevation of thermocline in the western part of the Pacific. The last 6 El Ninos were 1991, 1992, 1994, 1995, 1997 and 1998, 2002 and 2003, 2006 and 2007, and the last one was in 2009. The El Nino that happened in 1997 and 1998 was the strongest El Nino of all those 6. So this is a graph explaining the precipitation in the year of an El Nino. It's comparing the city Rockhampton in Australia and LA. Rockhampton is the blue down here, and LA is the green. So you can see that LA had much more rainfall on the beginning of the year, but during summer it barely had any rainfall until it came back in fall over here. And in Rockhampton it stayed very low, very consistent throughout the whole year. So this is the rainfall in a non-El Nino year compared from Rockhampton, Australia, and LAX in California. So the blue is Rockhampton, and the green is LA. So on the beginning of the year, Rockhampton had the most rain, but then in the summer it went down very low, and then it went up a little bit in November, but then went down again on the end of the year. In LA, it was also pretty high in the beginning of the year, but then went down, and some months it didn't have any rain at all, and it went up and then down again. This is a picture of the Pacific Ocean during an El Nino. You can see that the red part is the warmest part of the ocean, and the lighter part, so the yellow part, is where it's not as warm, and the blue part is where it gets really cool and where it's like normal temperature about. And so it's mostly the Central Pacific where it gets really warm during an El Nino.
Nice.
So this is a map of the world that shows what countries are affected by El Ninos. Here you can see the red countries are affected by El Ninos. So north of South America up here, Central America, and South and Central Africa around, and a little bit of north. And way down here in Australia, the Philippine Islands here, and India. The rest of the world here is not affected by El Ninos. I think the next El Nino will happen in 1 to 2 years because the last El Nino happened in 2009, which means about 5 years ago. And as I said earlier, the El Ninos happen about every 5 to 7 years. I think that the areas of Africa and Europe will flood, and that the US and South America would have droughts. I think this because the Atlantic Ocean is exactly on the opposite side of the world as the Pacific, so it's like a mirror image. La Niña is pretty much exactly the opposite of an El Nino. A La Niña is a cooling in the water in the equatorial Pacific that occurs at irregular intervals and is associated with widespread changes in the weather patterns, complementary to those of El Niño, but less damaging. An El Niño heats up the Pacific, so it's above normal temperature. A La Niña is when the Pacific is below normal temperature. As I said before, they are pretty much the opposites. I hope this report helps you understand how El Niño works.